Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm here with a couple of very special guests. I have Alex Dean
What's up, guys?
and I have Jeff West.
How's everybody doing today?
And one of them has been flying open source lately. Alex, you've been flying open source, and I call it open source because people call it RotorFlight, but that's the wrong way to call it. And
I know.
we're gonna get to that, right? Again, one of the things that made it difficult for me was understanding everything that happened, everything that you had to do to get a helicopter to fly on RotorFlight. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, the initial setup is um, daunting, but once you've done it once, it's not as scary as it sounds,
I
or
know.
it is hard as it sounds.
And Jeff wanted to do it, and then I think he got scared.
Yeah, it's very daunting when you first get into it and have nothing to go by, no videos, especially lean towards helicopters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. So let's talk about this stuff first. So in order to use RotorFlight, you have to obviously have a transmitter. So you can't, you could use Spectrum, I guess. You could use any transmitter you want, right? Yeah, you
I-
absolutely could.
yeah, for sure. You could.
But the logical thing to do is to use an open source transmitter. And the reason for that is because they're very inexpensive, very versatile. They give you a million options when it comes to configuration, setup, and everything else. It's crazy how they work. Um,
I
so
think the main reason you use it though is that if you use an open source radio with an open source flybarless unit like RotorFlight, you have the ability to adjust all your gains, all your rates, everything like you do with a forward programming radio with this as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about that first because that was my main hurdle. Like rotor flight to me was not anywhere near as complicated as trying to understand how everything works together, right? So you get a
Yeah.
transmitter first. So the most the two most popular brands, just to make this very short and sweet, are RadioMaster and FlySky, right?
Yep.
So RadioMaster runs open source software called EdgeTX. And EdgeTX is a newer version of something that used to be called back in the day OpenTX. I might be wrong on this. I did a lot of reading on this stuff earlier, a couple months ago, but I believe EdgeTX came about 2021, and it was just a group of developers that basically took OpenTX and just grabbed that code and took it to the next level. So HTX gives you a pretty much a very friendly user interface and compared to the old OpenTX. Is it basically touch screen? It has improved supports for scripts. We're going to talk about scripts some other time, some other day, perhaps. But HTX is basically the software that runs on the transmitter. If you get a RadioMaster transmitter, if you get a FlySky transmitter, then you would be looking at ethos, which is another variation of EdgeTX per se. But that is the
Yeah.
software that you use on your radio. So you have to kind of learn that first to some degree, right? And get familiarized with that before you venture into rotor flight. Because if you don't know how to, if you don't know what to do with the transmitter, you're not going to be able to set up rotor flight, right?
Well,
It's impossible.
I- absolutely. Or you can cheat and have someone help you do it or load a file, but it's nice to know how to actually program the radio when you want to change switches around or do anything like that. Like when I did mine for the first time, I had someone basically do it for me, which was nice. But then when I got home, I was like, how do I change what I've got here?
Jeff, I know you're getting a RadioMaster TX16S soon.
Yes.
Have you played with one before or no? He's got his. Alex has got his.
So I played with them. I played with one when it first came out, when RadioMaster first introduced the TX16S, and it was OpenTX. And I did play with one for a little bit, and then I have not touched one since.
And I hear that um, for sure the OpenTX was a lot more difficult to use by far. than EdgeTX is nowadays. So it was a lot more challenging, right?
Right. And I have EdgeTX, but I can tell you OpenTX is a lot of challenge too.
Yeah, I honestly, when I started looking into RotorFlight, as everybody calls it, my logical radio to go to was a RadioMaster TX16S because it's the Mac Daddy of the RadioMaster radios. It's the most popular radio you can get. I mean, I guess the FreeSky is really good, really popular. Nothing against it, but some of the people I knew here in the area had the RadioMaster, and I was like, that's the logical thing for me to start with because I can get help. I know people that are using it. Yeah, absolutely. But and also the TX16. The only reason because they make a box or they make other units that are perhaps you could say even more ergonomically friendly or whatever. But the TX16 was the best, the top of the line radio is $380. So you can't beat that, and that's full retail. Nothing can touch that. Literally,
not that price.
Not even close. So the first thing you need to do is obviously get a transmitter once again. Okay, so once you get that radio, and we're going to do more videos, we're going to talk about how to set up the radio and how to do all these things. But once you get that radio, whatever it is you want to do, whether it is EdgeTX with RadioMaster or Ethos with FreeSky, then the next step is to think about the protocol you're going to use. So the most popular protocol is Express LRS, ELRS. I guess it stands for Express Long Range System, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was
It's
trying to remember that also.
It's also an open source protocol, but it's a very high performance protocol, and it was designed originally for FPV applications, for drone racers and people that wanted to send like a FPV aircraft or airplane
a mile away or something.
Yeah, actually, it's known. I'm probably way off on this, but I heard stories that they can go up to like 20 miles. It's insane.
Whoa.
So what happens is it's got such an incredible amount of bandwidth, this protocol, that the higher the bandwidth, in other words, the higher the range, the higher the latency as well, right? But what these guys have been able to do is they've been able to allow you to increase your transmission rate, right? And you can go upwards of, it's insane. I think it's what is it, Alex? Help me here. 1,000 hertz. It's insane.
There's 1,000 hertz. I believe that the normal radios that we've been using in the past were 333.
Yeah.
And I know I was able to set this one at 1,000, and you can feel the difference between when you go back to back. If you've been flying the other system for a long time, you can feel how much faster this responds to your helicopter, and it picks up more fine movements from the gimbals because it's communicating more often. It's sending more packets.
Absolutely. And I actually coincidentally met the guy that developed one of the core developers of ELRS at the EdgeTX event here in Central Florida, like not long ago, like a couple months ago. And he was telling me about how these things, it was way over my head, even though I'm a programmer that's what I used to do. And I've been in IT. It was still over my head because this dude was like so brilliant and he was explaining things. But basically, the reason why you can get that kind of range of 20 miles or whatever is because they take the latency, they increase the latency, so it increases the bandwidth, the reach, the how far it can go, right? So in helicopter applications, we go backwards. So we don't need that range. So what we do is we increase the hertz and we reduce. Basically, we're reducing the length of the signal in exchange for a faster response, right, from transmitter to device. So when you go to those super high 1,000 hertz, even 500 hertz rates, you can't fly at 20 miles. You can fly at line of sight. Maybe you're lucky if you can go, I don't know, quarter mile, which is more than plenty, right? But then you get this super crazy instant response. But I feel like if you're going to venture into RotorFlight, you need to understand the protocol that you're using to fly your helicopters. Now, some of these transmitters come with a built-in module with Express LRS. Some of them do not. So I know the RadioMaster TX16S, you can get one version that has an internal ELRS module. So it's turnkey. You turn it on and it's got that module ready to go. So do you have anything else to say about Express LRS, Alex? Or
No, I mean, you could technically use, your Futaba transmitter, anything you wanted, and just put a receiver on there, just like the old days.
Yeah.
you mean to fly RotorFlight or
To fly RotorFlight, you don't have to use ELRS.
no? Correct. But since we started talking about EdgeTX and Ethos and all these various transmitter open source software that's available for the most common the transmitters, then most of them come with Express LRS built in. But yes, for RotorFlight, I agree with you. You can use Spectrum, you can use whatever you want, right?
So it makes it, you can make it as affordable as you want, even if you were going to spend a lot of money on a RadioMaster TX16S. To me, if you're one of the high-end modelers and you're coming into this, like, why would I buy something that's cheaper? You definitely want to do if you want to get the full experience, get the ELRS model, because you get the really fast packet sends and the latency is so good. So
agreed.
My 2 cents.
So let's talk about RotorFlight. So again, RotorFlight has nothing to do with the radio, the protocol. Like Alex was saying, you can have a Futaba radio, a Spectrum radio. I don't know what else other radio you can have. And you could probably connect it to RotorFlight and fly RotorFlight. So there's the two main popular RotorFlight per se flight controllers or flaberless systems are the Nexus, which is manufactured by RadioMaster, or the Fly Dragon, which is manufactured by, I believe, Steam. Both are very popular units. I'm a huge fan of the Nexus because it's when you look at it and you touch it and you smell it and you feel it, and it's only $79.99. You're like, wow, really? Are you kidding me? This thing is like unbelievable. Full CNC case. It's just, it's beautiful. It's awesome. And it's simple. And if you are a person that flies V-bar and you fly Hobby Wing, for example, and you have a Hobby Wing telemetry cable, you literally can use the same tiny little connector, the Y connector that comes out of your telemetry port on your Hobby Wing, and plug it in on top of your Nexus, and you have telemetry. It's not really. What's that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I have.
Or Nitro.
I'm using the same cable from YGE also.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not good for Nitro because it can be used on Nitro. I've done a lot of research. Actually, I was getting ready to set a Nitro up with it, but it's not as easy with Nitro because, especially if you have redundant battery, if you have a LiPo with a couple of leads for redundancy, if you have a electronic glow device like Switch Glow or XGuard glow, so you're missing some ports in there. So the Nexus is really not the right unit for Nitro, in my opinion. But for electrics, it's great. Now the Nexus requires a receiver. So, which is really, some people think that that's a drawback or whatever. I don't think it's a big deal. The Nexus is $79.99, basically full retail price. And RadioMaster makes a receiver called the RP3-H, which is a very, very tiny little receiver that plugs into the Nexus flaberless unit. And the receiver is the size of something like, for you guys that are familiar with Spectrum, like a DSM-X or DSM-2 satellite, maybe tiny little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's just a satellite. I wouldn't even call it a receiver. It's a satellite.
But it's got the long antennas like a V-Bar Neo or Evo instead of having tiny little antennas that the Spectrum had. But anyway, I, for example, installed this on my RAW, on my L-Goblin RAW and L-Goblin Pro, and I just literally put the receiver under the elevator servo with double-sided tape, and the antennas go up through the antenna, the 3D printed they give you, and you don't even see it. It's like it's not there. It's perfect. And then you plug in that receiver to the Nexus, and you're good to go. So that antenna, or that receiver, sorry, runs Express LRS. So going back to the whole thing of the protocols, if you wanted to fly a Nexus with the Spectrum transmitter, you would have to plug in the Nexus to a Spectrum receiver, or I don't know if will it work? I think it works with the Spectrum satellite too.
Yeah, you can plug in a DSMX satellite, Spectrum DSMX, right to the top, like where you would plug in your RP3 receiver to it, and you can use your Spectrum transmitter.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if you want to go with Express LRS with, again, the RadioMaster, you would obviously have to get the external receiver, which is the RP3-H, which is also a RadioMaster product. If you want to go with the Dragonfly, and some people like the Dragon. Yeah, Fly Dragon. The advantage of the Fly Dragon, and Alex, that's what you're flying, right?
I have Fly Dragons on mine, yeah.
Yeah. So the advantage of the Fly Dragon is the fact that not only you have more ports. So if you're flying Nitro, you have an additional port for another receiver lead to supply power to the unit. You also have additional ports so you can run your electronic glow and all these things. But the coolest thing about the Fly Dragon is that it has a built-in Express LRS receiver. So you don't need.
Actually, it looks a whole lot like the Neo does.
Yeah. I'll put a picture on the screen, but
got you, bro.
So, but there you go. Whereas the Nexus, you need that separate receiver, which again is really, really small. It's an RP3-H, tiny thing. The Fly Dragon doesn't need that, has more ports. So that's why a lot of people like it. And they go for what, $95, Alex? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it's $95. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, here it is right here.
Oh, there you go.
Jeff has the RP3-H. Yep.
Yeah.
It's about the size of a DSMX satellite.
Yeah, it's tiny, a little bit bigger, but not by much. Very close.
Yeah, not by much, but the antennas are a lot longer.
Yeah.
These are about the size of the old Neo antennas.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, if you want to venture into RotorFlight, I hope you found this video useful. We're going to do more videos. We're going to do tutorials. We're going to do all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
I know there are people out there. I heard from Herman and Archie and some of the Heli Direct guys. They're doing Project X or something. That's really cool. I think that's amazing that they're doing that for the community, because again, the learning curve is ginormous. And for me, RotorFlight is based on Betaflight, and Betaflight was something that was developed by the open source community back in the day for the people that were doing FPV drone racing. And I was one of them. I'm a nerd. I wore the goggles and I sucked at it. I did it. But so I was familiar with Betaflight because I used it before, and it was quite different because it was more based. It was designed to be run on a quad with 4 motors more than anything. And it was just a different deal. But the whole concept of the logic of how the software was developed has been maintained. It's the same with RotorFlight. It's basically a fork or a variation of that original code. So I was kind of familiar with that to some degree, but it is nonetheless overwhelming to understand everything that you have to learn and understand about, how to set up the transmitter, how is this protocol going to work, what receiver you need to use, how to bind the receiver to the radio, and then once you get there, how to go through all the menus and figure out what does what, and there's even though you don't have to touch everything, you can get creative and touch a million things. There's filters, there's PIDs and feed forward gains for every axis of the heli. It's insane. So it is a very, indeed, challenging thing to tackle for anybody, whether you're dumb or smart, doesn't matter. It is not easy.
No.
I'm a big believer that providing a file is great. I think that's awesome. But I am a bigger believer in the fact that if you want to do this, you have to learn it and understand it. Because I can take the horse and give them water, or I could just teach them how to go to the lake or whatever. I don't know what to say. I screwed that one up. But you know my point, right? I feel like learning is empowering you guys because the system is so robust and there are so many ways to accomplish the same task. I was playing with my radio, right? And I was creating overrides for certain functions and this and that. And then I hooked up with John Hopke, which is like a very knowledgeable guy. He runs the YouTube channel, RC Video Reviews, and he's super awesome with EdgeTX. And he was showing me how to do the same thing I did in a completely different way, and both accomplish the same end result. So if you don't understand what's happening behind the scenes, yeah, you can copy a file and you can go fly. But I feel like as modelers, we all enjoy and want to learn and know how to do things, because the next time we're going to do it, or if there's a software update or an upgrade, or we want to, like, you know, set up another model, or we want to change the screen from this to that, or not show the battery percentage here, but here, or show me head speed here, no battery percent, whatever. If we don't understand how it's done, we're not going to be able to do it. I think that's a great way to get people there, but I feel it's more important to teach people how to get there on their own. That's my 2 cents.
I'm a strong believer, as you know, of teaching. So we're going to take my teaching and step abilities of the videos to help try to get
Nonetheless, Jeff West spends all his days teaching people. You do. That's all you do.
True that.
Build videos, this video, that video, teaching.
That's it. But to me, that's important. Is you can you can just send somebody a file and say, here you go fly. But if you don't actually learn as the user on what you're doing, then you're not going to ever learn how to do it. You have to learn by doing it.
Absolutely. So I think that sums it up for a little overview of what we call open source flying, I guess. Open source flying. That's how I'm going to call it, because everything is open source. OpenTX, EdgeTX, later on Ethos, Express LRS, and of course RotorFlight is all open source software. It's great software that's developed and continuously improved by a great group of guys, great community. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a video about each one of these things to walk people through. I've watched a lot of videos, and the main issue I have with those videos, and I'm thankful for the people that put those videos together, don't get me wrong, but my main issue was trying to figure out the logical sequence of steps to guide me through the learning process, right? What do I learn first? Okay, now I know this. I can't learn RotorFlight if I don't know how to set up my radio first, right? Yep. I can't. There's a logical sequence of certain timelines, certain order in which you have to learn things to get you there and be comfortable with it. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I want to thank you, Alex, and thank you, Jeff, for
I'm excited to learn along with us.
And Alex is actually like getting the hang of it pretty well right now, really well. You're getting the hang of it well, but Jeff is going to be the perfect. Jeff is a super smart guy. He understands helis inside and out, and he sleeps, breathes, eats, sleeps helicopters. But I'm really curious because I'm going to guide him a little bit, but I want to see how much he can like progress in terms of like learning the system with, no offense, Jeff, with minimal help. Because I did it. I literally did it by myself in like a matter of 8 hours. And then I had some phone calls with some people, spent an hour on the phone, and then I got it done. So you can do it. Sure.
No, I'm excited to do it. I sleep right here, so I don't have to go to bed.
I know you do too.
And then I can play and learn.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.